Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Soania Mathur. I'm the founder of Unshakable MD, and my topic today is, why should we participate in clinical trials? As both a physician and a patient, I'm often asked about the state of Parkinson's disease research. Will there soon be better treatments? How long before they find a cure? And in the early days of my diagnosis, I was so preoccupied with other things in my life. My answer was often very non-committal, something like, well, they're working on it. And there is a whole community of dedicated researchers and clinicians that are working so hard to relegate this disease to the history books. But what I didn't fully realize at that time is that when I said they're working on it, that I and all of us as a patient community are included in they. The fact is the research can't proceed without us. For a new neurologic treatment to get from the lab to the pharmacy shelf, it can take well over $1 billion and 15 to 30 years. Half that time is spent in the clinical trial stage, yet up to 80 or 85% of all clinical trials are delayed because of recruitment problems, and a shocking 30% never make it off the ground because they fail to recruit any subjects. Think about that for a moment. Decades of time and more than $1 billion, and if the study can't recruit enough patients, then what a waste of resources and, most importantly, time. Time that those of us that have to wake up each day facing the burden of Parkinson's would rather spend fully functional and productive, fully able to contribute to our families and community in a way that no one can do when they're in the depths of this disease, time that we don't have to waste. We as a patient community must partner with the research community in a collective effort to find better treatments for this disease. That can't happen without our participation. But by the same token, like any decision you make in life, as patients, we have to weigh the pros and cons of the choices we are given. Before deciding to participate in research, you must take many factors into consideration. Here are some pros and cons that you should keep in mind. Let's start with the concerns or risks that you must consider and be informed about. Start with number one. There may be increased risks or side effects with the experimental treatment compared to the standard treatment you normally receive. Although, to be honest, by the time a drug is tested in humans, researchers have already had to show scientific evidence that it will likely work and that it is safe. And if the study happens to be a phase 3 trial, then by that time the intervention or treatment has already passed safety studies and has been shown to be effective. Of course, even though safety of participants is actually foremost in everyone's mind, and every effort is made to minimize risk, unforeseen issues may arise during the trial period, and that is something to be concerned about. Number two, you may have to stop or change your normal treatment protocol, and the experimental medication may not be as effective, resulting in you experiencing greater symptoms. First of all, not all clinical trials involve testing a new treatment. Some do, of course, but many are observational studies where scientists learn about a particular disease state by monitoring a group of affected patients. Others may be testing an already approved and safe medication that is normally used for other health issues. That's known as repurposing an existing drug. And if your condition worsens for some reason after you are enrolled on a new protocol, you can withdraw at any time. Number three, depending on the trial, there may be significant time commitment. Travel may be required depending on the location of the study, and visits may interfere with your family or your occupational responsibilities. In fact, it may be difficult to arrange for time off or other arrangements to be made for childcare and that sort of thing. But there's so many variations in the logistics of different clinical studies, those that do require more intensive and frequent follow-up, and others that may be completed in a single visit. Some may be even done at home online, or may simply involve sending a DNA sample in by mail. Depending on your life situation, there is likely a suitable study for you from a logistical point of view anyway. Number four, if you are part of a randomized control trial, well, then you will not really be able to choose whether you receive a placebo versus the drug being studied. And that may be difficult, particularly if you've had to change your current treatment regimen and were placed in a control group. You might find this difficult. Number five, even if the new treatment you receive in a clinical study works well, you may not have continued access to the treatment once the trial is completed. There are many examples of this happening where a study is halted because of clinical endpoints not being met, although the participants in the study, or some of them anyway, found great benefit. One example of this situation is the GDNF trial. Number six, expenditures and overall cost of participation in a clinical study might not be adequately covered, particularly taking into consideration loss of salary, as well as additional costs such as childcare or driving. Keeping these concerns in mind, let's go back to the benefits or the pros of participating. Of course, there are personal benefits that extend beyond the altruistic decision to help further the research for the greater good of the Parkinson's community. Although, as I mentioned, clinical trial participation is necessary in order for the research community to develop their better treatments and a cure. Without enough participants, clinical trials languish and are delayed, a fact that wastes precious time and resources. Number 2, through a clinical trial, you may have access to potentially better treatments that you would otherwise not have had the opportunity to use. In fact, you may have first access to more effective treatment than what you normally use to treat your Parkinson's. It's always a possibility and the hope of researchers that will happen. Number 3, the experimental treatment may have fewer side effects than the standard medication you use. Again, that is the hope of the researchers. Number 4, if you have exhausted all standard treatments that are given for Parkinson's and are unable to find anything to help control your symptoms and maintain your quality of life, because it's all about quality of life, then a clinical trial may be a much needed option. Number 5, since many clinical trials involve specific visits and investigations at regular times, often by leading healthcare professionals in the Parkinson's field, you may actually benefit from this increased monitoring and medical supervision. And number 6, there is obviously a certain feeling of empowerment that is gained from being proactive in the choices you make in the context of your illness. And I'll go back to the larger picture for me. There's a sense of satisfaction knowing that you've helped advance the knowledge in the field of Parkinson's through your participation. And that's regardless of the outcome, because every clinical study adds to our knowledge of Parkinson's, whether it's classified as successful or if it failed to reach its outcome measures. Taking all these pros and cons into consideration and combining them with your risk tolerance, your general health, logistical life issues, and your comfort level, you'll be in better position to make more of an informed choice. Each time I'm presented with a possible clinical study, as part of the informed consent process, there are a number of questions that I ask myself. First, what intervention are they testing in the trial, and how do they determine who will receive it? What are the chances I'll receive a placebo? What are the risks and benefits believed to be of the intervention compared to the treatment I'm already getting? What tests and procedures will I have to do? What are the potential discomforts I might face? What are my rights as a participant in the study? There are also a number of logistical issues that need to be sorted out. How long is the study? How many visits will I have to make? Is there any compensation, or at least will my expenses be covered? Who do I call if I have any questions or concern? Only once you kind of answer these questions for yourself and you're satisfied that your concerns have been addressed should you give informed consent to participate. So what is my main message? The research that we need, the search for better treatments and ultimately a cure, cannot and will not happen without our involvement as patients. We need to support clinical research in whatever way we can, by participating, by raising funds, by raising awareness. But remember that just as you may not qualify for all studies based on their inclusion and exclusion criteria, all studies are not necessarily a match for you, and you must make an informed decision based on your review of the pros and cons and your personal life circumstances. But there is such a depth and breadth of research being done that there undoubtedly is some way to get involved to help push the research forward. I'd like to end with this. I'd like to end by expressing how grateful I am for the thousands of volunteers that have come before me, sacrificed far more than I ever have to advance the science. And I look to the thousands in the future that will continue the science either through trial participation, fundraising, or advocacy and support, knowing that eventually there will be better treatments and a cure based on their dedication. For all those that further the progress that may someday alter the trajectory of my life and those of my Parkinson's community, I'm eternally grateful. Thank you.